Who is, according to the Bible, the Son? The S-U-N. Who's the Son? Okay. Look at all the places in the Bible where Jesus is characterized in some way as the Son. Like where he said, I'm the light of the world. Well, that's the Son. Okay. Genesis chapter 1 on day 4, the greater light that rules over the day. That's the Son. So look at other places, like Jesus' countenance shining like the sun. And Psalm 19, the heavens are like a tabernacle for the sun. And it's interesting that when they built the tabernacle, everything went east to west, just like the sun goes. So there's a match there. When they set the tabernacle down, when they were wandering in the wilderness and they set the tabernacle down, how did they arrange the tribes? What is it that, according to the Bible, the sun is in the midst of? Verse 5, and the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. That's what you see in on day 1 of creation. In fact, let's go back and read that, Genesis 1. The light shined in darkness, and darkness comprehended it not. Here's what that means. Here's what I think that means. Now, you might have a different theory on this. I do know one of the meanings is sometimes you can give verses to somebody all day long, and they're just going to look at you like a mule looking at a new gate. They're not going to believe it. They have no idea what you're talking about, and they don't care. They don't want to know. So in that sense, the darkness comprehending it not, the light ran right into the darkness, and the darkness said, you can just stop right there. If you look in Genesis 1, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void. Darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. What causes waves on the ocean or a large lake? What causes waves? Wind does. Not the tides, waves. It's the wind blowing across the top of the water, and that water just builds up more and more energy. As the larger the body of water, the larger the waves are going to be. That's why on lakes you have little bitty waves. But you go to the ocean, like the Atlantic or the Pacific, especially out in the Pacific, because the Pacific is huge, the more wind you have blowing across the water, the bigger the waves are going to be. And I think there's something in physics there in verse 2. Things in the universe have frequencies. The word frequency is not in the Bible, but the word wave is, and that's frequencies refer to waves. Verse 3, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. 4 words. 4 words. And in the 4th gospel, who is that light? It's Jesus. And notice that in God's creation of light, he did not blow magic pixie dust into the air to create light. He did not stir up a cauldron and it exploded. There was not a big bang. God spoke. And his word is light. You see, because on day 1 of creation, there is no sun and there is no moon. So you have light, but you have the true source of light, which is the Word of God, Jesus Christ. And then it says in verse 4, God saw the light that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day. So, you have evening, you have morning, you have a division, a clear division between light and day. To me, that is John 1, where it says, and the light shined in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. There was no mingling. What I see in John 1 is no mingling between light and darkness. And you have no mingling of light and darkness in Genesis chapter 1. There's a clear division. Are you listening to me, saints? There is and should be a clear division between who you are and who the rest of the world is. Clear division. There should be a difference, the same difference as there is between night and day. Between the way you think, the way you talk, the way you live, the way you work, the way you worship. There should be a clear difference between you and the world. The world does not want to act like us, do they? No, they want nothing to do with righteousness. And I also think that God's people should not want to live like the world. Because watch this now, when supposedly Christians, church people, when they live exactly the way the world doesn't comprehend that, do they? They're going, I thought you were like a Christian. And you're asking me for marijuana? Or you're here, I show up at the bar, and there you are sitting at the bar already? I thought you were a Christian. They don't comprehend. And they shouldn't have to. There should be a absolute difference between us and them. Because even before there was a sun and a moon, there was day and night. God was able to separate light from darkness because the light shines and the darkness does not comprehend it. The darkness says, stop right here. Don't go any further. I don't know what that is, but we don't want it over here. Verse 10, he was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not. Isn't that true? Turn to Romans 1. He was in the world was made by him. Isn't it interesting that mankind kicked out the creator of this world? It's like a guy builds a house, gets it all ready to be moved into, gets the title on the house, and he says, next Monday I'm going to start moving my stuff in here. And he shows up next Monday, and there's already people living in it. And he's going, you're in my house. And everybody in there is saying, excuse us, this is our house. No, I built it. No, you keep your religion out of this. This house built itself. And so they kick out the builder out of his own house. And that's what they did to Jesus. He was in the world, and the world was made by him. But, what does it say? But the world knew him not. Romans chapter 1, the Bible says, verse 18, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who hold the truth in unrighteousness. Now, I don't have the answer for this, but I think that every man and woman in the world, in some way that I do not understand, hold the truth of the Creator, of Jesus Christ, the Godhead. They see it every day in the creation. They acknowledge it not. I think everybody on some sort of conscious or subconscious level knows the Creator, but they hold the truth in unrighteousness. And on the surface, they just refuse to admit it. Because that which may, verse 19, because that which may be known of God is manifest in them, for God has showed it unto them. Not now, because that answers the question, well, what about in the Amazon jungle? Some would say, well, see, they've never heard the preacher preach, so I think they're going to go to heaven. Nope. If that were the case, why then did Jesus tell us to go into all the world and preach the gospel to every living creature? Why did he tell us to do that? If they automatically go to heaven because of ignorance. God says in his word, God has showed it unto them. And I believe what God said. They are going to die in their sins, having on some level known the truth and rejected it. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Because that, when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Remember what happens when light goes into a dark place. The dark kicks it out, says, well, we don't understand you. Get out. But I'll tell you, the people in history who have tried the hardest to teach and preach people Jesus Christ, they've all been slaughtered. There is so much darkness in this world that they not only do they not comprehend the light, they hate it and don't want it around. Because then it reveals their darkened heart and the evil intentions of the human heart. It reveals that, and you know as well as I do. So we have people throughout history who've tried to bring light to this world, and this world not only despises them, it has them killed. The Vatican hates the light, which is why they hate the source of that light, which is, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So the Catholic Church, guess what Bible is on their list of banned books? Some of you already know. Chris Pinto discovered it. The front of a Catholic Bible. And an article written to Catholics. See, Catholics, they can't just read the Bible on their own. They have to have they have to have the Vatican looking over their shoulder telling them what to believe while they're reading the Bible. And there was an article in this Catholic Bible that was entitled Forbidden Books. And it said, there are some books that we forbid you to read. Any Bible not approved by the Vatican, including and especially the King James Version of the Bible. They named it by name. Do you know why? The King James is light. And their doctrines and their deeds, like priests pedophiling on young congregants, altar boys, getting them to talk dirty in the confessional. See, they don't want that brought to light, do they? They don't want their billions and billions and billions of dollars in bank accounts all over the world. They don't want that brought to light either. They want you to consider them as a poor church, so you donate large sums to them. And they want you to think that in donating large sums to them, then you get points in heaven. You'll get out of purgatory a lot quicker. So they don't want guys like William Tyndale watching a Catholic priest force a widow and her children out of their own home and farm because her husband died, and that priest convinced that woman that her husband was screaming in agony in purgatory, and all it takes is a mass to be said with his name on it so that graces would be given and he would get out of purgatory quicker. What's it cost? Your farm. So they're the ones who steal widows' houses. And no, not William Tyndale, but John Wycliffe. John Wycliffe saw it happen. He saw them stealing widows' houses, and he said, that's not right. If they just had a Bible in their language, because at that time the only Bible allowed was in Latin, and nobody knew Latin except the Roman Catholic priest. And he said, if I can just print a Bible in English, they would be able to read it, or it could be read to them by somebody. And they would be free from that. And the Catholic Church hated John Wycliffe so bad that even after his death, they had a trial. And they found him guilty of heresy. And they dug his bones up out of the grave and burnt them to ashes. Just because. Why? Because he wanted to shine light in a dark place, and the darkness said, there'll be no light here. And God has turned them over to a reprobate mind. There is no light in them at all. So now Christ, He's coming back, people. Just like Moses. Moses comes the first time. They reject him. Moses comes the second time, but this time he comes and his face is shining like the sun in his strength. Jesus is coming back, and the light of his countenance, the light of his face is going to shine, and I believe the whole world is going to see Jesus appearing in the clouds, and us with him.